A lot of this work is going to be talking through the feminine experience of the mental body structure, so that you have the overlay of one within the other, and then you have this unit that you're able to understand, oh, that's what this is, oh, this is why this happens, and that's why this occurs. Hey guys, welcome to Going Dotty. In today's video, we're going to overview what alternative mental health is and what that means, what that represents, how that might be useful to you. So let's crack into it. So when it comes to this as an alternative mental health healing modality, let me just expand on that a little bit. So I've mentioned a few times that it is the intention of this work that it is an educational platform that, enables and facilitates an individual to be able to learn about their energy body, about their energy structure, about the larger energy structure that we're interfacing with, and to understand the things that can happen in between those two spaces, how to identify with them, or how to identify them, how to deal with them, how to be able to navigate, and just how to be able to swim in the soup of your own life in a nice, positive, healthy manner. And in order to achieve this, there's a twofold element to this concept of alternative mental health. So we're trying to understand the mental body system. In energy and energetics, when we're talking about healing, we talk about we have a physical body, an emotional body, and a mental body in that order. And the mental body in and of itself is a distinct energy field to the emotional body, to the physical body. When I first got into the industry, there wasn't really very much specific detail about the workings and the mechanics of the mental body system. So that really became one of my great areas of interest. And in doing lots of research and putting lots of things side by side, what I have discovered is that there's multiple different systems for looking at the mental body and operating different structures within the mental body. And to a certain extent, that's what the sharing of the structure is just sharing the multiple structures that you can use. So it's teaching the tools that you need to be able to, go through this or get through this, as well as explaining, the things that happen, why they happen, what experiences are like when you're going through them, how you feel, why you feel a certain way. And you see, we're talking about feelings now, so we're going to get into emotions a little bit, because the mental body structure and the emotional body structure are a little bit, they're all caught into a oneness at the moment. There's not really a healthy distinction in general, certainly within the Western world, and this is what I refer to as the energy body. Now there's a specificness to the way that I'm using this language, and I know that that's unfortunate because other people will use the same phrase in different contexts. And that's just one of the, things about language. We have to have a language to be able to talk about certain things. There isn't really any other phrases available at the moment, and it is perhaps one of the limitations, and it's just one that I'm going to work around, because I'm just going to try to distinguish all the time specifically what I'm talking about. So when we're talking about the energy body, and it's the negative toxic energy body that we talk about a lot when we talk about the ego. So if you go back to the ego series and we talk about narcissism and we talk about like toxic people and toxic dynamics, that is all I suppose low levels of consciousness or low levels of energetic structure that are operating their energy body in a negative manner. But yet we all have an energy body, and that energy body is certainly in this model of outlay is the combination of the mental body structure with the emotional body form, what we think with how we feel, and it mashes up into one, and we're not really able to distinguish between one and another. So my area of focus came to be on the mental body as a system and structure, but that's because I got into the more feminine, emotional, hands-off healing modalities. So I trained in Reiki, is always the one that I go back to because it's the one that most people have heard of. And I got into that back in around, Freudian slip, back around 2009, 2010. And I've shared a little bit about this in my bio, so I suppose if you want to know about that, you might as well reference that video instead of talking about it again. But it's just trying to explain that we have the two elements to our form. And a lot of this work is going to be talking through the feminine experience of the mental body structure, so that you have the overlay of one within the other, and then you have this unit that you're able to understand, oh, that's what this is, oh, this is why this happens, and that's why this occurs. Because one of the realities I find, and it's not really something that is highlighted significantly enough in the industry as far as I can perceive, is that, you know, so much of this happens through our cognitive mind. It's our awareness, it's our brain, it's our thinking self that is going to deal with, integrate, consider all of these things. So there can be a lot of focus of, you know, have positive thoughts, you know, don't think about certain things, transcend the mind, transcend the ego. And there is a certain amount of validity and a use value in that. But what is also true is that it is our cognitive mind that does so much of the work. You know, our mind is perhaps the major tool that we have for experience while we're embodied. So this is about educating the mind. It's about awareness of the mind. It's about feeling safe and healthy within the mental space. It's about being able to navigate these spaces. So when we talk about this as alternative mental health, that's really what I'm talking about. And, you know, people who are experiencing a lot of the mental health maladies that are going on in our modern times, I don't really want to reference any of them in this moment, but, you know, there's a lot of mental health issues going on for so many people. We're all people, you know, we all have an energetic body, we all have a spiritual structure. You know, the word spiritual is not such a scary concept, it just means that which is non-physical. So we can kind of argue, or you certainly could successfully make the argument that so much of our lives is a spiritual experience, because it might be physicalized through our biology, you know, like we can track our moods, our emotions, our hormones, our mental state can all be tracked within the body. But at the same time, our biology is the mechanics and the machinery for some greater experience. And that's really the sum total of what spiritual means. Like, it doesn't really mean anything beyond that. And yet, as a term, there is a lot of loaded content that can be put onto that word, you know. So that's really when we're talking about alternative mental health, that's what we're talking about. That's why we're coming from it, from this perspective. And that's what it's all about. It's the energy body, what's happening within you, how to navigate it, what to do with it, and then how to be able to, you know, clean up the processes, deal with the cleaning up of the processes. You know, something that I find very difficult is it's very easy to go onto information resources and, you know, they talk about, you know, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do the other, and that can all very much be true. And yet for some reason there isn't this reverence of holding the feminine space of what a person is actually experiencing, you know, like how it feels when you're at a low ebb. You know, if we think about life as a vibrational flow and a vibrational pattern, well, when you're at the base end of the vibration, and because you're not trained adequately within your system and having a system and knowing what to do with it and how it operates and these sorts of things, you know, then that's a very uncomfortable, you know, unhealthy experience if it keeps on happening and if we're powerless to that experience. So that's why a bit of education for yourself, you know, in yourself, in what you are, in how it operates, and also the general movements of life. You know, there are larger forces that are at play, the relationships in our life as things come into us, and there's stuff that we have to deal with. You can be okay to a certain extent if you're just like, have the time and space, if you have the resources, the precious resources in today's world to be able to look after yourself, that's one thing. But what if, you know, your door is constantly being hammered with one thing after another after another? It's like, how is your larger system supposed to cope with that when it's quite literally triggered into an experience of overwhelm? You know, somebody perhaps explaining, you know, oh, it's overwhelm, or, you know, you're in the void, or, you know, the phrases that can go with it. There is a use value to them, but then there also is a lacking of use value. That's what I'm trying to bring to the table, that which I see as lacking within the industry and the field. And hopefully, if this work doesn't work for you, then hopefully it triggers words, awarenesses, or pieces of information that allow you to find the person that does work for you. Because this space is very precious, it's very important. It's very important that you find the right person to be able to work with you through this internal environment and these internal experiences that are going on. You know, what happens when your lucidity is changing? What happens when you have all of these conscious experiences that are coming in and you feel them? And it's this weirdness of, you know, it's a familiar experience and you know what's going on, but at the same time you can't remember and you don't know what's going on. So you have this discombobulation between your higher body consciousness and your lower body form. And again, I'm going to be trying to introduce concepts and language. You know, not that I want anybody to feel forced to have to accept those concepts or language, but we need language to be able to discuss these things. You know, I'm from the west of Ireland, like quite a lot of the context for a lot of this stuff is embarrassing to a certain extent, quite frankly, you know, but it's taken me quite a long time and quite a few years of growing up to just recognize it's just language, you know, they're just words. People don't like the words. There's not really much that can be done about it. Words mean things. It's all about inflection. It's all about communication. It's all about trying to illuminate and showcase something to somebody so they have a use value to come from it. So quite a lot of this along the way is going to sound a little bit naff or sound a little bit unlikely, and I'm aware of that. But at the same time, it's all about trying to differentiate the psychological structures and spaces that we sit within. And again, all of these things, and all really any of it is, it's a map. It's a blueprint for you to look at, consider, see if it's useful, utilize it as best as you can or as much as you want to, and then crumble it up like a piece of paper and let it go when the time is right for you to do that. Because as you evolve and move through the system, you'll realize that the things that were useful to you at one stage aren't useful to you at another. And by the time you actually get through the whole process and element of things, you won't need any of the structures to begin with, because you'll be flowing in the moment completely differently. That's not going to happen without an awful lot of work and effort and consciousness and consistency and determination and tenacity and all the other words that mean stuff like that. But it is possible. And you know, this is your life. It's the one thing that you're going to have for the rest of the time that you're here. And it's certainly worth investing in from my perspective. So I hope you found this useful. I hope that helps give a solid basis and a structure for understanding what I mean when I talk about alternative mental health. It's a complement to the mental health systems and structures that are already there. I am hoping that this will be like a therapeutic walkthrough and a talk through of what all of these things are. I have an awareness and respect that some of the structures and some of the language are new, might be uncomfortable, they might sound a bit daft, but they're what we have to work with. So we're just going to, you know, take those and go with it. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will talk to you guys again soon.